Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Compliance Chronicles. So, we recently done an episode on mistakes, how we learn from mistakes, how we adapt, the mistakes that Ray and I have made so that people could learn from them. Off the back of that episode, as part of the consultancy work we do, we had people contacting us, both people that we already work with and people contacting us that we've never even worked with before out of the blue. Firstly, thanking us for the episode, but more importantly, saying, coming to us with questions, how can they implement things in their work around adapting to mistakes and how they can overcome them, inspire their team members. And off the back of that, there were some interesting questions being asked around leadership and an episode, ideally, on leadership, what makes a good leader, what makes a bad leader, and some takeaways for them to be able to take back to their business. Sounds about right?
I think it's another crossover topic, one that actually goes way beyond kind of just the realms of compliance and actually goes into wider society. I think, like I said, there's no better time to be unpacking an episode or a topic like this, given kind of the landscape of leadership at the moment. You're looking at, the political landscape of leadership, looking at, recent times, how we're discussing like burnout and the impact of leadership on burnout, and also kind of like more recently, kind of we're seeing in industries kind of the higher turnover of leaders and leadership. So I think it's a really, really important subject, really, really important topic, because when we think about leadership, often we think about a specific type of person and character, but actually that's not that's not leadership. Leadership is much broader than that. Leadership is much more nuanced than that. And I think what we want to discuss today is not the corporate fluff, but actually what actually good leadership looks like, what bad leadership looks like, and actually delve into stuff, some of the misconceptions, the lies that we're told
Are we
often about
making the
leadership.
assumption here that you and I are good leaders?
So, so look, I think it's kind of what we've learned. I think maybe, I mean, it's for the audience or for people who've worked with us to let us know if they think we're good leaders or we've been successful in leadership. I've been fortunate to kind of to lead departments, to lead teams, to lead businesses, to lead even kind of on a recreation level, at grassroots football level, lead youth, lead apprenticeship schemes. So I've been fortunate enough to kind of to be involved in leading various different types of initiatives, and again, that's one of the main things in terms of being a leader, being a good leader, is actually taking on the context. So, like I said, that's what we will discuss today. First and foremost, a question to you: give me a good and a bad experience of leadership that you've had. So, being led by somebody, a good experience of that, and potentially a bad experience as well.
We discussed this the other week, right? When we were at a conference and we are having a coffee, and we were talking about. I'm sure you'll come on to that, but we were talking about leadership, and I remember saying to you at the time, I don't have many examples of people of managers that I've had, leaders that I've had, that would be good examples. And I know that sounds really harsh, but I can only think of one that definitely stands out in terms of somebody above me. And she was amazing. And the reason she was a good leader, I would say, is that was my first experience of somebody who was willing to crawl through glass for her team. And that was the first time I'd experienced that. Every other leader I'd had or manager I'd had prior to that and since that was the complete opposite. Like, they would take credit when things are going well, but then when things are going bad, they're nowhere to be seen, almost cowardice behavior. So she is a prime example, and she was probably the one that I base a lot of my leadership skills around in terms of a good example. Bad examples, I've got plenty. I won't list them out because I've got plenty of them. But what I would say is that, and I think it's an assumption, right? When we start talking about leadership, and we had this discussion, we automatically go to people that are above us. When we're thinking of leaders, it's like, right, what good managers have I had? Well, actually, almost all good examples I've got of leaders around me have been people that are in the same team as me, people that either I've managed and are leaders of their team, or people that just work alongside me in other departments. And I pick up on things that they do well with their teams or the people around them. And I think those are the ones that I've learned more in terms of good leadership, like financial crime team leaders, safer gambling team leaders, really good data protection officers. And what's always stood out from I would say the main thing that stands out is the fact that they do stuff for themselves, for others before they do stuff for themselves. And that is the main
Yeah.
thing that's always stood out
Yeah.
in the good leaders.
Yeah. And you're so right. And I think I should probably looked into this. Let's say that this actual quote beforehand, but there's a quote that specifically kind of gives a definition and difference between kind of being a manager and a leader. And I think it kind of the main bit about leadership is actually putting others first. So a leader kind of brings people up and takes on, whereas a manager kind of gives orders. And so I think that you're going back to saying what you were saying around kind of a leader going to bat, crawling through glass, or like you're saying, doing things for others before they do them for themselves. And I think it's really important, like we were saying, when it comes to leadership, how impactful leadership is on a group of people and individuals. Because there was a 2023 Gallup studies stat which said 70% of team engagement variance is based on the effectiveness of leadership. So like the better the leadership, the more engaged team you're going to have by up to 70%. So it's so important.
Wow.
And it goes for like I said, when we're talking about leadership, it goes for not just in the professional context, but actually outside of work. What does leadership look like? Because again, for me, it's something that having children, I want them to model the characteristics of an effective, successful leader, because again, those are hallmarks of ultimately generally a good person.
Yeah. And you know what? It's funny you say that, because I would say about probably 99% of the things that I try to do as a leader of a team, a leader of a department, is based on probably sports professionals. I think almost it could almost be 100%, apart from I'm putting a small bit of it down to a previous manager I had.
Yeah.
But like if I look at, you know, this is going to sound horrendous, but if I look at the mentality of people, look at Kobe Bryant. Okay, so anybody who's watched, what's the one with where the American basketball team when they were going to the Olympics? What's that documentary on Netflix?
Oh, it's called oh my
Dream
goodness,
Team.
Dream Team.
Dream
There
Team.
was also that second one, which was basically when they lost the one and they came back.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So one of them.
yeah,
But for me, if anybody wants an example of perfect leadership, there are two parts, two standout elements of that
redemption.
documentary. Redemption, yeah. Number one was when they brought Coach K in. And Coach K is a definition of not just a coach or a manager, but a leader. The way he talks to the guys, the way he brings out the best of them. And if anyone that wants to read his book, I don't know if to talk to you or the
Yeah,
camera, but his book on leadership is phenomenal. But then the second example, and it's a really amazing story in the documentary, was when they're all young basketball players making millions, so they're out and about and they want to enjoy themselves, and they're talking about this story of Kobe, and the story is hilarious because they're like, yeah, we've been out raving until like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. in the morning, and we get back and we're going in the lift, and Kobe's there, and Kobe's already sweating. And they're like, where are you going? He's like, I'm going to the gym. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning. But then the story evolves, like as they're going in the lift, like, oh, can you believe this guy? Like training in the gym. But the next day, LeBron's down there. Day after, Dwayne Wade's down there. Everyone goes down there. He inspired the whole team to then start taking training more seriously. So instead of just doing their basketball training, they're all now in the gym at 5:30. Then they're doing basketball training. Then they're gym in the afternoon with Kobe. And he's inspired that. Now that's a leader. Whereas the others are all good players and there might be good coaches and managers around, but that's a leader because he's just inspired greatness in everyone around him. That sounds like a far-fetched story, but I think good leaders inspire that
yeah,
in the people around them.
yeah. That was going to be one of the kind of I think one of our kind of closing remarks. But I think it's poignant we say it now, and it's like you're saying, successful and good leaders inspire people, but not necessarily inspire people in big moments, but inspire people in the smaller details. So that getting up to go train at 5 a.m. is a small detail, but people were inspired to do it because they seen it in him and seen the benefit of him doing it. And so I think that's another thing, like leadership is actually, can you inspire people to do the smaller things, not necessarily the big gestures, but the smaller things consistently. And
It's a fine line, just to add to that, because I've got that wrong before.
yeah,
That part. I used to always be the first online.
yeah,
And I would like send messages to the team about reports or whatever. Then I'd always be the last one on. I'd make
yeah,
sure, and I was being a bit of an arse at the time. You learn things as you grow up and in your career. But then I would always want to be the last one, like 10, 11 at night,
Yeah,
sometimes early in the morning, I'd send another message. And then I thought I was doing a great job because like weeks, months later, I've got all of my team members taking it in, like someone's like, oh, this person came on at 6 a.m. in the morning and they
yeah,
sent this update. Or this person was on till 11. And I was thinking, I've done a great job here. I've inspired all of these guys to now be working not just 9 till 6, but they're all working so late. How good am I? And now I look at it, it's like, how bad was I that I got all of these guys thinking that the right thing a leader does or the right thing that to do is no matter what you're doing in your personal life, work comes first. So at the time, I thought I'm a great leader. I've got all these guys working
yeah,
extra. Now I look back, I'm like, how bad was I as a leader
yeah,
that I made them think that this was what was expected of them?
yeah. But that goes back in terms of why we were discussing this, because we've talked about kind of burnout, we talked about mental health, and actually, like you're saying, as a good leader, it's about recognizing the impact you're having, even when you're trying to do the right thing. So you I believe you were doing it for the right motives, generally, but actually that impact or that inspiration you had was having a negative impact and actually potentially causing burnout, not only for yourself but actually for your wider team. So I think it's really important that we recognize, kind of as a leader, things that with the smaller things that we're doing that are potentially are having a positive impact, but also the smaller things we're doing but that are having a negative impact. And that goes back to kind of, or goes on to when we discuss later, kind of one of the key points, I think anyway, of a good leader is kind of that self-awareness piece. And we'll discuss that. So in terms of leadership, obviously that was something you weren't proud of. Has there been anything in terms of your leadership career? And obviously it's an evolution, so it's really good that, again, that was something you might have been doing at one point, but you've evolved and as a leader. Has there been anything particularly that you've been proud of in terms of kind of your kind of career as a leader, or your journey as a leader, should I say?
Oh, 100%. I've got much more proud of it. I would say the main thing when it comes to things that I've learned from leading people, because I still don't think right now, I don't think of myself as a great leader. I think I'm good at it. I do think I'm good at leading people. And the main reason for that is because, to answer your question with good examples, I look at the people over, say, the last 10 years that I've managed or have been in my teams. And then I look at where they are in their careers
Yeah.
and where they are as people. And I would like to believe that I've had some influence to that, into where they've got to. So those are definite positives. Like people that have come and worked in my teams, spent a bit of time with me, and even if they picked up on one or two things from me, they've gone on to have really good careers. And I think, I would say, in many of the examples, they've matured and they've grown as people. So definite good examples there. Even in the industry that we're in, I look around at people that I've worked with that are doing amazing things in their career. Many have overlapped me. And I think, well, yeah, I must have done an okay job because, well, one, I didn't scare them out of the industry, which is a good thing, and they still want to work in compliance. And two, they seem genuinely happy, and the people around them seem genuinely happy. So, yeah, I think I've done some good there.
Yeah.
You must feel the
Yeah,
same.
funny enough, I think probably my most proud moment as a leader wasn't professional. Again, it goes back to more of a recreational. So again, I was coaching at grassroots level football teams for a number of years, and I had a team I was coaching for I think 3 years, and they all, I don't know if you've watched this. Back in the day, there was a program called the Renford Rejects.
Yeah,
So I had a group of kids. They were bless them and bless their parents. So
I don't think that's politically correct
yeah,
anymore.
they were very enthusiastic. But in terms of the technically and tactically, when they first arrived, they weren't great. But we worked.
Excuse me.
But we worked.
I want to stop talking for a second.
No, but we
I'm
worked.
dying.
But myself and another coach, we worked with them. We did extra training, and again, it was how I was able to communicate and also get the buy-in, get the trust from the parents, and then get the trust from the players. The first year it was kind of this kind of new tactical way of playing, kind of playing out from the back, and the players were kind of losing games. But again, I was kind of reinforcing that the message of kind of what we're doing, why we're doing it for, and they trusted me. They kept trusting me. I was demoing. I was showing them things. I was able to be very vulnerable in the moments where we've lost, and we might have lost 6-0, and I was very vulnerable and said, "Look, I feel as sad as you guys, but I'm going to get up tomorrow and I'm going to go again." Long story short, the third year, the team came on leaps and bounds. We got to a cup final, and we won that cup final, and that was probably the proudest moment, because in that cup final we won 3-0, and two of the goals were specifically like down to a T, these kids doing what I've encouraged them to do. So it was literally on the pitch, every single instruction, they did it to a T. And as you know, coaching 10 and 9-year-old and 11-year-olds, that's very, very
I was
far,
about to make a
few and far
joke that they're
between.
under fours.
So that was probably the proudest moment I've had. Professionally, there have been some proud moments, you know, where people have left and gone on to develop their careers and have come to me and said, look, the reason why I've been able to take this new step or go and take this step is because of the impact you've had on my career. And obviously those are very, very proud moments. But yeah, so those are kind of some proud moments. But the most proud I've been actually was in that moment, watching those kids actually implement everything I'd asked them to do after 3 years.
No, that is really good. And for anybody that caught my cough in there, I nearly choked on my water.
Why is that? Was it because the rejects comment?
It's because I was trying to drink to the side so that the microphone didn't pick up the gulp. But then in the end, it got me coughing for 5 minutes. But one thing I was going to say off the back of that, because you were mentioning coaching a youth team, is that do you think there's some correlation between, and I know that everybody will be able to relate to it, but some correlation between when you become a parent and does that positively impact the way you are as a leader? Or maybe let me word that different. Do you think you changed as a leader when you became a parent?
I mean, there are many bad leaders who are parents. There are many good.
Yeah.
There are many good leaders who aren't parents. So I think.
Is there anything you learned from parenting that's helped you as a leader then? You can say no.
I think there has. I think there's been things I've learned as a parent. I think there's been definitely things maybe not so much working with my own kids, because again, you can kind of be more of a dictator as a parent, right? So you have to take on board less so somebody's as a parent, your own child's feelings. Obviously it's important you do, but if you say do X and it doesn't matter how they feel about it, it's got to do X. Whereas actually, if you're dealing with other people's children, you've got to be a lot more aware of that child's character, their background, how their parents parent them, what motivates them. So I think, yes, there's been definitely learning just as you mature. I think more actually just maturing as an adult, and then also actually probably working with children. I think actually that has probably played a really significant role in kind of how I operate as a leader, or operate in terms of managing teams and people.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose some things will be easier with leading children.
Yeah.
Some things will be harder. And I was going to mention respect, but then the question on that was going to be, you know, have you had to lead people before that didn't respect you?
Oh,
and what did you do?
Oh, I mean, I hope not. So I definitely probably have led people that haven't potentially liked me. We haven't been the best of friends, but I don't think I've ever led somebody that hasn't respected me, because when it comes to myself as a leader, I pride myself on a couple of things which I hope are things that are integral to people respecting you, and that's again being somebody who is vulnerable when they need to be, open and transparent, somebody who follows through and does what they say they will do, and somebody who's consistent. And so those things build trust. So if you say you're going to do something, you do it. You know, people can trust your word. If you are somebody who is open and vulnerable, people can see you as a human being, and also people can come to you. We talked about that kind of psychological safety piece in a previous episode, and that kind of builds out the integrity. And also, like I said, when you are able to be consistent, it builds that accountability. So I think it's hard for people not to respect somebody who has integrity, who takes on accountability, and who is consistent and takes ownership of things. So definitely, probably people haven't lied to me, but in terms of not respected me as a leader, I don't think so. What about yourself?
Yeah, I got one example.
Okay.
There was one guy that we had a great relationship when we were working together for a long time, but then I don't know what the tipping point was, but there just was a point where he definitely lost respect for me. And it made it worse because the feeling wasn't mutual. I still had huge amounts of respect for him, but there was just like a tipping point. I remember one phone call we had, it was like a group phone call, and he just started speaking to me really disrespectfully. So maybe he didn't like me as well, but he definitely lost respect for me. And I remember that being really tough. And I remember handling it badly as well as a leader, because in front of all the people that were on the call, I tried my best to keep my cool for as long as I could, saying that, calm down, you shouldn't be speaking that way. We're in a group environment. Let's have a one-to-one discussion. And then I did handle it inappropriately, because then I just said, I think I got really angry and just said, you know what, get off the call straight away. I'll meet you on a one-to-one phone call and we'll hash it out. But I remember saying it in quite a harsh tone
Yeah.
and handling that poorly. But I think it was because it was the first experience for me where somebody in a real open environment in front of people that I needed to respect me and that I needed to see that I was the leader. I, it wasn't that I felt challenged. It was that I felt this guy has the ability right now to undo what I've been trying to work on for the last few years in this one phone call, and I can't let it happen. And then I remember we went on to the one-on-one phone call, and he was quite honest about the fact that he didn't like the fact he had to report to me and he wanted to report directly to the ownership. And I made it clear that's never going to be the case. You are reporting to me. And he ended up leaving the business, which was unfortunate. But that was an example of where I had to be a leader and somebody didn't respect me and I handled it badly. I did handle it badly.
What characteristic do you think you could have implemented better that would have impacted that situation more positively? What do you think is the one characteristic that you think if you did that, was it like kind of you could have delegated this conversation? Is it I don't know. You could be more vulnerable. I don't. What do you think that could have improved that?
No, definitely. I honestly, I don't know. I mean, it's a good point. Maybe I need to reflect on it a bit better. At the time, I put it down to the fact that he had grown quite bored in his job, and as a leader, I didn't spot those signs, and I wasn't involving him in enough projects and challenging him enough. And I think I remember thinking to myself at the time, I've not managed him well enough to give him challenges. He's got bored. And now he's looking for ways to channel that energy. And the way it's been channeled is to go at Alex.
Yeah.
That's what I put it down to at the time. I genuinely don't think, in terms of characteristics, I could have done anything differently. There's nothing that I've done differently since then. I do think sometimes you clash with people and sometimes people won't respect you and like you. It's the way it is. You're not going to get on with everybody. But I think I just handled it wrong. But I wouldn't do anything different now in terms of characteristically. What I would do differently and what I do differently is I'm a little bit more hands-on with some of my team. And when I see that they're not being challenged enough, the same way I would if somebody's being challenged too much and has got too much work, I work with them to manage it. I would address that earlier. I left it too long.
Yeah. It's funny because we'll go into the kind of, again, talking about the hallmarks of successful leadership and actually what does work. And I think it is really, really important as a leader, you recognize when yourself or your team is in a crisis moment or when they're in a calm moment, and actually what it takes, what type of leadership it takes in a crisis moment and a calm moment, because it's not one size fits all. I think it's really important to understand that leadership is contextual and actually.
Why can't we discuss it now? What is it you want to discuss right
No,
now?
because I wanted to go and I wanted to discuss. Like, in my head, I had kind of the concept. We wanted to kind of go and actually, I wanted to talk about actually the misconceptions and the lies.
Let's do that, because
Yeah.
but I do really want to know about the crisis moments, because I've got teams at the moment that I'm working with that are in constant crisis.
Yeah.
And I think it could be valuable to
Yeah. So I wanted to kind of discuss, because again, for me, I don't know about yourself, but for me, over the years growing up, like there was kind of this concept of a leader. Yeah, a leader's kind of like, for example, a leader is born, not made. How often did you hear that? Whether it's in the sports arena or whether it's kind of looking at in politics or just kind of out there in the world, and you kind of either had it or you didn't have it as a leader. But I don't think that's correct. I think definitely you can learn to be a leader.
Yeah, but if you look at a lot of leaders that are out there, they are definitely, a lot of it I think is the way they just are. I don't think people are just the way they just are. I think there's always things fundamentally in either their upbringing, in their background, or in their education that causes them to be how they are. I don't think many people are just the way just the way they are. But look, I mean, you can have two, let's say you've got two kids, right?
Yeah.
You've raised them the exact same environment, the exact same way. You will get one who will be very outgoing, very extravagant in everything they do, wants to be a dancer, an actor, a sports person. Then you'll get the other who's very quiet, very chilled, not very outgoing, wants to just sit and read.
Yeah.
But they've got the same, they've got the
Yeah.
same nurture. One of them is definitely a born leader, more of a leader than the other, wouldn't you say?
I wouldn't. I
Okay.
wouldn't. I wouldn't. I would say they have different characteristics, and they might be fit to be a leader in different contexts. But also, I think in both scenarios, you can help them develop leadership qualities. So where one is more extravagant and outgoing, and maybe doesn't has a lack of less self awareness, and one who's more reflective, you help that one build their self awareness. If one is more reserved and is able to is not so great in kind of being able to articulate or to convey a message or to influence, you help that one build their ability to communicate and influence. So I think again,
Okay, I agree with that.
yeah, I think it's
Now you've explained
yeah.
it that way. I would agree with that.
So that's why the one thing I think that it's a lie that you either are a leader or you're not. What kind of things did you have been dispelled kind of in your evolution as a leader that you thought back in the day you had to be in order to be a leader?
The Compliance Chronicles continues to grow. Thank you to you guys for always supporting us. With that being said, it's really important that you continue to like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so that we can continue reaching more people. I mean, coming back to what I said earlier, like always being present, like a leader is always, if you look at it in this day and age, a leader's always online or a leader's always active, you know, first to arrive, last to leave, that sort of attitude. I always thought that was what good leaders done. That's a complete lie.
Yeah.
You know, that poor time management, if you ask me.
Yeah. Poor leadership.
Yeah, poor leadership. But that was always something I believed, was that, you know, leaders are always present. I think leaders just make you feel like they are always present, but they don't need to be present. I'll quote that. That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Put that in a trailer. Yeah, so that's definitely one of them, that they're always present. I think also, I don't know if there's a misconception, but like leaders know everything, that they have all the answers.
Yeah.
But I definitely don't.
Yeah.
I think I'm an okay leader, but I definitely don't have all the answers.
Yeah. I think in fact that is a sign of a bad leader. I think that's probably one of the worst misconceptions. That and kind of a leader has to show no weaknesses. I think those two, in terms of a leader has to have all the answers, is almost counterproductive to actually becoming a good leader, because actually being a good leader is about knowing you don't have all the answers, but actually being really good at asking the right questions. So, and then obviously, like I said, I think another really, really big lie around successful leadership is actually you cannot show any weaknesses. You can't be no sign of weakness, and I think that's in the past has held a lot of people back in being good leaders, and actually has created a lot more bad leaders than good leaders.
So have you seen these characteristics in leaders then? Like, because you're saying that these are misconceptions. So have you seen them?
Yeah. So look, I've had a long career, and all that career was spent in kind of old school law enforcement, where kind of it was about kind of you couldn't show weakness. So a lot of these leaders, these managers, inherited their roles. Right, they might have been a good sergeant, they might have been a good whatever their job was, and actually there was again that another misconception, or that another lie, where if you're good at your job, you must be a good leader. So anyway, you had a lot of these people who had inherited roles as leaders or managers because they were good at their job, but they weren't good at leading, because again they were displaying things such as wanting to have all the answers, or wanting to not entrust people with actually going away and actually trying to find answers for themselves, or being trusted to kind of develop, or like I said, not showing any weakness. So being kind of very draconian, being the bad guy, and kind of not showing any vulnerability. And again, these are signs that are not conducive to getting that innovation, getting that variance, getting that engagement from the teams. So,
but on that vulnerability part, then you must feel like that's changed quite a bit now with how much support there is for mental health, especially mental health in the workplace. Do you feel like that part of it's changed, and now leaders can be more vulnerable and are more vulnerable, or do you still think there is that expectation that a leader keeps it all bottled up to a certain extent?
Again, I think definitely can. Again, I think it goes back to what vulnerability means now compared to what it probably meant there. I think then 10, 15 years ago, vulnerability meant, again, weakness. But actually, vulnerability doesn't mean weakness. It means openness. It means transparency. It means inclusivity. It means actually I'm being vulnerable so I can get other people on board to support me to bring out a better outcome. Whereas before, it's like, vulnerability means you're weak. So I think definitely that's helped societal wise in
Is that a word?
societal, yes. So I think that's helped definitely. Because there was a study, a Harvard business study from 2022, which was a shocking stat when I was researching, and that found that 59% of employees trusted a stranger more than they trusted their boss. And I think that is
What do you mean? Trusted them with what?
that's a good question. It's probably more than trusting them with, maybe telling them something, trusting them to be genuine in their nature. It just a
Oh,
trust.
okay,
So
okay.
trusted a stranger more than they trusted their boss. In what context? It's a good question. I'm assuming it's just kind of like they're trusting that person as a genuine person,
I suppose,
trusting a
but either
person.
way, in any context, that's
Yeah,
bad because you
yeah,
should trust your
yeah,
boss with most things.
yeah, yeah.
That's when was that? What year?
2022. So it's not
So
too
I don't think
not,
it's
not
even
long. Yeah,
probably improved since then. I
yeah,
think if they'd done the same study, it'd probably be probably worse now.
yeah,
But I would say again, it comes back to that some of the traits around leadership and some of the leaders that I've definitely had where I can understand that feeling of not not necessarily trusting. I suppose trust is a strong word, but not having faith in them and not feeling supported by them. I would say that's a little bit different. But though I would then also say it comes back to those are the qualities that I've tried to make sure that I provide to the people around me.
yeah,
Because a lot of the things I do in the way I work with my teams are based on me not wanting to repeat what I've seen the leaders around me do as I was, growing up in my career. Like coming back to that vulnerability piece, I remember having a leader who was he always used to make a point of not building relationships with your team.
mm,
There might become a point where you've got to sack someone. There might come a point where you need to get rid of someone or you need to go down the disciplinary route. And if you've got too much of a relationship with them, you're not going to be able to do it. Your judgment will be clouded. And I used to stick with that. I used to think, yeah, they're right. But now I completely ignore that. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I'm not having colleagues,
Go for
round my
dinner.
house for dinner. But I definitely have friends that are also colleagues,
Yeah,
and I definitely have relationships with people where I'd like them to believe that they can talk to me about things, and I'm not just a colleague, that I will listen to them and support them like a friend would. Uh, but I used to believe that for so long. I used to hang on those words like, yeah, I remember I got invited to a wedding, and my boss at the time saying, you shouldn't go to their wedding. That person's in your team. If you go to the wedding, it's gonna ruin things. You're gonna struggle because they're gonna take advantage of you. You're gonna see sick days increase. Their performance is gonna dip because now they know they've got a relationship with you. And I nearly didn't go to the wedding, but I'm so glad I did.
yeah,
But I think so. A lot of what I do in terms of working with the teams around me, it's to try and not repeat the bad behaviors of managers or leaders that I've had in the past.
yeah. Funny enough, that's interesting because I actually had an instance where I had to let someone go. Had to let employee go, but I felt that it was easier in the sense that there was less friction. And again, there was trust because I'd built a relationship with this person of openness, and so when I let them go, it was actually there wasn't a shock to them, number one, and they had built a trust in my decision making. They'd built a trust in kind of my character that actually they recognized maybe the environment wasn't right for them. So I gave them kind of the reasons why I believed it so and believed where they would be best, and actually soon afterwards, um, you know, we went out for a coffee. Even after I'd let them go, kind of they wanted some more feedback, and I was open. I went for a coffee, and then soon afterwards they were able to get another job, similar role, but in a different industry, and they're thriving now. So I think again, it doesn't just because you build relationships with people, it doesn't mean that they're going to suddenly turn around and take advantage of you or have all your home truths. So I think again, it goes back to kind of that kind of that old age misconception around kind of what good leadership looks like, kind of being distant from your team. I think actually more so, you should be present around your team. You should be there for your team. And again, not being always busy, not always being always available, but being, like you said, I really like that saying, being available even when you're not there.
Yeah.
People are able to hold on to and trust kind of the direction you've given them, the inspiration you've given them to then go away and kind of figure out things, even in that maybe that small moment where you're not there, and you've created systems, you've created processes to be able to help people to do that.
So what do you think makes somebody follow, and yeah, what makes somebody follow a good leader?
What makes somebody follow a
I've
good leader?
probably worded that
Yeah,
so badly.
no, good question. What makes somebody follow a good leader is the person, again, being emotionally regulated, emotionally stable. So seeing somebody who is able to be consistent emotionally in all moments, whether there's a high pressure moment, whether there is um, you know, something that's gone wrong or right. So not too high when it's time to be, when there's things have gone right, but not too low when things have gone wrong. Somebody who is again, going back to that kind of vulnerability piece, but who's open and transparent. Somebody who follows through. I think that's a big thing. Somebody who's consistent and follows through. So if somebody says as they're going to do something and then they follow through on that, um, people are more trusting. Then again, it brings up the integrity piece. People will follow people where they believe there's more, there's more integrity around that person. And also, like I said, people, and somebody who's self-aware. So somebody is a manager or a leader who's self-aware, who can reflect on the things that they've done, which have impacted positively and or negatively, more often negatively, because again, oftentimes people who are not great leaders will take all the credit for things that have gone right. But when things haven't gone great, and you're able to still be reflective and self-aware of the impact you've had as a leader, people again will follow you because they will see that you're able to take accountability, and they won't be afraid to be around you as a leader, because they won't have that thrown on the bus scenario where actually if I follow this guy and then things don't go well, I'm gonna get thrown on the bus. These are kind of some of the things I think now will definitely be characteristics that will lead people to follow you as a leader.
So it links into, then you were going to come back to the crisis
Yeah.
thing. So talking about what was you going to say about that?
Yeah. So there was like as a leader, kind of there's two typical moments, right? There's your crisis leadership and there's your calm leadership. And it was kind of like in the crisis moments, you need to be able to remain calm, but be decisive, be very reactive. So be able to make quick decisions, but they're logical. They are well thought through, and they be able to triage, and you're able to be decisive and make snap decisions in a short space of time, and you're able to get people on board with the way you make decisions in kind of in a crisis moment. Again, remaining kind of that regulated in your emotion, but in a calm, it's kind of the opposite. You need to be proactive. You need to be able to see opportunity in the calm moments, where you can challenge your team, where you can provide development opportunities, where you can look at ways you can streamline and refine things when in the calm, and where you can get people on board to develop themselves in projects or actually in long term, and actually where you can look to do things that like are future proofing. So there's different kind of like you're saying, go back to that piece where you're probably in a calm moment at that particular time in whatever environment you were with that person, and actually maybe you had as a leader the opportunity to create development opportunities for that person, be a bit more proactive rather than maybe that waiting for them to come to you. You could have said, actually, I can see there's opportunity there. It's a calm moment. Let's look about ways we can develop you, where we might have a process that this person's involved in. Look, we're in a calm moment. Let's look at ways we can actually refine this process, improve it, or we can future proof it for whatever potentially is coming in the future.
No, I should have just sacked him.
So I think, yeah,
bring that to life then, because most of the people that listen to this, B2B or B2C in the gambling industry, that's the bulk of our listeners in the gambling industry. So bring that to life then. I work in the gambling industry. I'm going through a crisis moment right now. I'm managing a team. So let's say I'm managing products about to launch to market, but we've got bugs in the system. I manage a compliance team. We're about to go into audit. We're about to do a license application. Or all of it's happening at once.
Yeah.
We've got this crisis. What would a good leader, or what could somebody listen to this take away and reflect on and try and bring to their work tomorrow?
Yeah. So number one, again, it's in those moments, it's really important to kind of regulate your emotions. So
But how you say that? Okay,
yeah,
but talk to me about that, because how do you are you talking about meditate? Are you talking about do yoga? Take a deep breath before you enter a call. Like, how does somebody? Because it's easy
yeah,
to
yeah,
say
yeah,
it, right?
yeah,
Regulate your
yeah,
emotions, but we're humans.
yeah,
We're emotional, and something can happen like that,
yeah.
and our emotion changes. So how? In that scenario, I go onto a call tomorrow, and my CEO says to me, or the founders say to me, right, Ray, right now, I know you've got them other 10 tasks that you've got to do by the end of next week, but I need you to also now prioritize these 5 things. And you've got to do it tomorrow. It's crisis
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
You go on a call with your team. And sorry, but just bring that to life to me. How does somebody regulate those emotions right there and then? Is there anything that you do that somebody could be like, okay, let me give that a try?
Good question. For me, how I regulate my emotions are number one, looking at the big. I try to look at the bigger picture of things at all times. So the bigger picture of life. That's how I try to look at things. Number one, look at the bigger picture of life. One, and then look at the actually what the aim. Again, I always this thing where I've been fortunate, kind of working in compliance or financial crime is actually you also have to focus on the aim. So even in a crisis, there is always an aim. And if you're able to focus on the aim, it allows you to de-stress, it allows you to focus the mind, and then that kind of automatically allows you to regulate your emotion when you're actually able to look at the aim and hone in on the aim and focus on that. So that's what I do. I kind of look at the big picture. I always try to, whenever there's something that comes in a moment and it's crisis, whilst it's important to kind of act quickly, it's always important to take a moment. So take a moment, doesn't not take 5 hours, but take a moment to kind of again go away, think about the bigger picture, go away and actually think about the aim. And once you've got those two things here, then you go into your war room meeting or your crisis meeting with whoever it is you're working with, and then able to again to look at, based on our aim, what are the most important things we need to achieve, and in what time do we need to achieve it. And once you have that clarity, and you're able to have uh that clarity for yourself, it gives clarity for other people, and then other people can then input into that picture because it's much clearer. So that's kind of how I, as a person, as a leader, try to hone in on the kind of emotional regulation piece. It's always just trying to look at the bigger picture. I know it's easier said than done, but
Yeah.
the more you do it, the easier it does become. It becomes more habitual. So again, with the thing when it comes to kind of strong, successful, good leadership, it's about the habits. It's about things you're able to do habitually, and the emotions you're able to create, or emotions you're able to manage within yourself. Because if you can't manage yourself and you can't regulate yourself, you're not going to be able to manage and regulate others. So I think that's kind of really important for
Yeah,
me.
no, I agree. But that's what I wanted is if there's something you do,
Yeah,
it will give an example of to listeners that they can take away. Not necessarily they're going to do the same thing as you. Maybe for them, maybe for other people, it's not, focus on the aim. Maybe for some people, it's, you know, something as simple
mhm,
as meditating. I take 20 minutes
yeah,
to meditate. It might be something like I know for me, for example, the music I'm listening to in the background of my day can make a huge difference to the way my mood is. For example, it, and I think it's just, I would say I would liken it to, when you're driving, the music dictates how you drive, right? If you've got fast, upbeat music, you will drive a little bit faster without even
yeah,
realizing. Whereas
yeah,
if you're playing something calm, relaxing,
yeah,
your mood is calm and relaxed, and therefore you drive that way. Somebody will cut you up, and your reaction would just be idiot. Whereas if you're listening to that loud, more upbeat music, somebody cuts you up, you're like, oh, and you're already a little bit more because your blood's already flowing because of the music. So for me, yeah, the music is a big thing. But I would say the point is that because everybody's different, it's important for them to understand what works well for them to regulate their calm
yeah,
and find their calm before they go into those crisis
yeah, yeah,
calls.
yeah, yeah,
But that's tough.
yeah,
Anyone in our industry knows that that's tough.
yeah.
It's
I guess
tough to
that's
be a
kind of
leader.
what you earn your keep, or you earn your credentials as a good leader, right? In any moment, it's like I said, and we go back to sports, but like you learn very little, when you're winning. That's what they say. but you learn a lot more when you're losing or when there's a kind of a crisis. And that's the kind of same way I see it as a leader. I always look to see, actually, this is a moment of opportunities, a moment of learning. And it's kind of going back into the episode we did on mistakes. Actually, this is an opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
And then when you look at it like that, it can help you regulate that emotion.
Yeah, funny you say, again, coming back to like, I love movies,
Yeah.
I love documentaries, and there's a really good moment in a film. So people should get really good movie ideas from me. I should be a movie critic, but
Yeah, you should be.
I should be.
For those listening, actually, just because I back you 100% when you say you should be a movie critic. Whenever I travel for work, or when I travel for pleasure, and whether it's a short haul flight, long haul flight, train, whatever, one of the first things I do is I will message Alex and say, look, I've got a 12-hour flight, I've got a 4-hour flight, I've got a 6-hour flight, I've got a 5-hour journey on the train. Give me some films to watch. And very rarely he fails. So yeah,
it's true. Come to me leave it in the comments. But yeah, there's a moment in a film where, and it's again another sports film, but they play a scene from an NFL game. It's from a Super Bowl, and I believe it's Joe Montana is basically, it's a final play of a Super Bowl, and it's stressful, right? They've got one play to make the touchdown. They miss it, game over, right? But they get it, they win the Super Bowl. Joe Montana, the quarterback, leader of the team, gets the team in the huddle, and at that moment, when everybody's in crisis mode, like, damn, everything's on, like, the whole season comes down to this moment, not just for the team, but for the city. And he gets his team together and he points to the stands like, oh, is that John Candy? So all of the players automatically look over, it's like, oh, yeah, and they have a laugh and a giggle. Everybody's chilled and they go on and win. And I can't remember the name. I think it's Draft Day. I think it's from that film, and they give that example. But that is perfect leadership. Yeah. Everybody in the not in the world, because this NFL wasn't as big back then. It was more of just an American thing. But everybody's watching that. Everybody's watching that moment, not just the players. And he, in that moment of crisis, found a way of calming everybody down. And I think you're right. I think the good leaders will do that. They will make everybody feel like, yeah, things are bad, but it's going to be all right.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be okay.
And even building on that, again, stats man as I am, there's a McKinsey stat in 2023 again, which
what's McKinsey?
McKinsey's
like an analysis.
They found that teams with emotionally intelligent leaders perform and report on average 4 times higher performance and innovation. So if you have an emotionally intelligent leader, you're going to be 4 times more innovative and 4 more times successful, almost, just by the fact you got an emotionally intelligent leader.
That's huge. And you know what? Spot on, because I've had leaders in the past who couldn't control their emotions for one way or another. I've had some that don't show any emotion and are completely closed books.
Yeah.
And I've had others who could enter a call and, the weather's bad that day and they'll enter a call, it's the worst day of my life. And it brings down everything. And therefore you feel like, how can I bring the most out of my day when I've just had this person on a call? Don't get me wrong. I want them to open up and I want them to talk to me. It's great. But there wasn't that emotional intelligence to know where the limit was to, talk to me. I'm having a bad day. This is what's going on. I just want to have a chat. Can you lend me your ear?
Yeah. Cool,
no problem. But they would cross that line sometimes where you'd be on a call for an hour or so. And it's just because, they stubbed their toe that morning. And, there's ways to regulate that. Yeah. And I would say that's 100% right, because the good leaders enter those kinds of discussions, install the calmness, or bring innovation out of you. And I think the teams that we've worked with over the years have been able to do that. If you look at some of the processes that have come about when we've been working with teams, they would never have come about, I don't think, if we weren't half decent at being leaders.
Yeah, off camera we were discussing, and I agree, off camera we were discussing kind of the hallmarks of good leadership, or what actually works. And I think I asked you a question, and I was really intrigued of your answer. I asked you a question around, if you were being led by somebody, what would good leadership look to you? And I think you gave some really, I don't know if you remember them, but you gave some really good answers. I
don't remember them.
You don't. So one of them was around one of the responses you gave was around kind of like trust. It was about, I think you.
Oh yeah. So I would say,
Delegation and kind of trust. I think it was, and
yeah, like I always do this, and again, I've got this wrong before. But one thing I always do is I put trust in the people around me.
yeah,
Like I put complete trust in them. They might get it wrong, but I would like the people around me to think that they know I've got their back. So I don't really care if you get it wrong. I don't really care what happens at the end of it. I just want you to run with it, take a chance, and we'll see where we end up. And then in return, put that same trust back in me. So I think that's one thing that I believe all good leaders should do is trust the people around you, and then they'll trust you in return. I put a lot of faith in the guys around me to just deliver on projects, just to deliver on tasks. I very rarely enter calls, in my opinion, or meetings where I'm the one that comes up with a good idea. I I like to think that I just create a platform where the good ideas can be brought forward, and
yeah,
then I'll help them action them. I would say that's what a good leader does. It just creates that platform. Like no, and I would say added to that, a bad leader enters like meetings or discussions and they want to lead. Like they want to be the focal point. They want to talk a lot. Whereas a good leader, I mean, maybe I'm getting this completely wrong, but I think for me, especially, one thing I like to do is when I enter, like, especially group calls, I just like to listen.
mm.
Listen, and if you ask me a question, I'm not going to sit there silent and ignore you, but I like to listen because 9 times out of 10, I'm probably going to lose a job at the end of this, but I'm not really needed in the call. I'm not really needed there to bring anything, to bring anything to the table. It's the people in the call that come up with the great ideas. And my job really at the end of it is just to make sure that I can help them see it forward. And I think that's what a good leader does. Bad leaders try to take charge in those meetings and try to be the focal point, try to come up with all the solutions. I think you said that at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
That your job isn't to come up with all the solutions, but you just create an environment where solutions, where innovation is promoted.
Yeah, and solutions are encouraged, and solutions can come from as many people and places as possible. I think good leaders can inspire people to be solution orientated.
Mm. Did
And
I say anything else?
uh,
I think that was the main one around
yeah,
trust.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I would say that's a big one.
yeah. I mean, I think that's a big one. I think in terms of like actually what works, what are the hallmarks of successful and good leadership, I think that's a big thing. I think, like I said, going back to emotional regulation, following through, being consistent. I think up there is trust, being able to.
But I think it links into what you were saying about
Yeah,
recreational as well. Like, when you coach the kids teams,
yeah,
I think it'd be the same with your kids, the same as with my children. I always tell them to take risks. Like, they both play football,
mm,
and I always say the same things. I'm like, take the risk, dribble around that player,
mhm,
take that long shot, try that new skill. There's a good chance it's not going to go well. But I think it's really common in coaching now and leadership now, because you're so focused on winning and the end goal. It's like, no, don't try that dribble, because if you lose it, we're going to concede a goal. Whereas a good leader wants that person to take the chance, because they'll grow personally from it. So you're not too focused about, the win, the result. You're focused about, can I get that person to the next stage? And I think good leaders do that as well. And I think that happens in coaching, right?
yeah,
Is that right? Is that what you do in coaching? Or would you be like, would you be the other side? Would you be saying, look, guys, focus now is keeping the ball, nothing stupid? Or would it be, look, I know this is a cup final, but just go out there and enjoy yourselves and try them tricks, do whatever?
I think adaptive leadership is so important. So for the majority of the time, it would be, again, especially when the kind of at the grassroots level, at the what they call the foundation and development stage, you really focus on personal development of the of player, and the aim is through the personal development of each and every player, collectively the team will improve. So again, as a leader, even in the, let's say, in the compliance department, if you're able to develop each and every person in the team, consequentially, the team should improve. So obviously there are moments, again, in a specific moment, and there are moments and situational circumstances where you might want to, where it might cause for a bit more conservative approach. For example, where you might say, okay, let's, for this next 3 minutes, let's take another approach, because that's what the context and us dictates. But as a philosophy, it's definitely about focusing on the people, focusing on developing the individuals within the team, like rather than kind of the win, focusing on the win, because again, if you're just focusing on that win, you're missing so many opportunities for development and innovation and creating longer term benefits. Because again, after that goal, that next win, what about the next game?
Mm.
There's always another thing, and if there's no philosophy, if there's no ethic, if there's no actually ideals around things, you're never going to kind of have that consistency, and you're kind of just going to end up probably micromanaging people and losing trust in people to go away and do things, and then again they have less confidence in themselves to go ahead and actually take on stuff if you're delegating it. So you need to kind of again balance that. But I think overall, yeah, definitely, the philosophy is to focus on developing people. And in terms of that kind of focusing on developing people, is that kind of an evolution? I wanted to kind of discuss actually the evolution of leadership, both in kind of your evolution of leadership and how you think leadership has evolved over time, whether it's just the concept of leadership or leadership in our kind of space within kind of compliance.
So are you asking, so for me,
Yeah,
in terms of how I've evolved or
Yeah,
how
yeah.
I've seen leadership in
Both,
general?
both. I wanted to talk about both, to be honest with you.
I would say, so first of all, come back to what you said earlier about vulnerability. I would say there's more of an acceptance and expectation now that you can be more vulnerable as a leader and you can talk about your shortcomings. I would also say to that there is also there's more demand than ever for leaders to deliver and more accountability. Yeah, more accountability on leaders as opposed to people around them. And if you use our space, the gambling industry is a perfect example. You know, that's why there are PML holders. That's why people get personal management licenses, because you are individually accountable for the actions of your entire team. So I'd say I mean, I know that's not exclusive to the gambling industry, and I know that, you know, they have SMF 16, 17, etc. I know you have all of that. But I would say that's something that, whilst there is personal accountability, that I would say that's definitely evolved so that there is more risk on individuals. But the biggest one for me would be the vulnerability side of things. I think it's just become more accepted, more expected. You know, I'm definitely vulnerable around my teams. So I would say that's one for me as well. Like, I used to be a very, very closed book, but now, you know, I talk to my teams openly about anything. If they want to ask me questions, I'll give them honest answers. They've seen me upset. They've seen me extremely happy. They've seen me ecstatic with results. They've seen me down when things haven't
Do you
gone
think
well.
do you think, so to cut you off, but do you think do you think your evolution is a consequence of the evolution of leadership, or do you feel like you might be the forerunner in terms of like you became more a vulnerable leader, and actually recently you've seen actually more leaders or the leadership tone becoming more vulnerable?
No, I don't. I don't think. What do I think? Like, I've inspired others to be like I've created others to be more like
Yeah, I
me.
mean, whether or not you've inspired or created other people, do you feel like it's because leadership is? Do you think that because it's now more of an okay thing for leaders to be seen as vulnerable is why you're more vulnerable, or do you feel like you were becoming more of a vulnerable leader anyway?
Yeah, I was becoming more. You know what? I reached a point. I don't know when it was, like a few years ago, where it's just I didn't really care anymore in terms of, you know, I respect people that respect me, and it doesn't matter what your job title is, doesn't matter what your position is. I really couldn't care less. And I reached that point, you know, a few years ago. And at the same time, me reaching that point, it was like, I'm just going to be the way I am. And hopefully that works with my team that are around me. And I was just very fortunate that the team that I had around me were good people. And they not only accepted the fact that, well, this is Alex's style, not necessarily management style, but his just the way he is as a human being. And it just seemed to work. And I haven't changed since then. It's just
Yeah,
the way I am.
yeah. I mean, you're fortunate. I think that another thing, which is important as a leader, is that your kind of outer image, your external image, the image you portray, should be as close to your inner image or your inner character as possible. And I think you're fortunate that your kind of external image or your outer image that you're as a leader is actually super close or identical, pretty much to kind of how you are as a person.
We
Because
both
otherwise,
are. We're both the same way.
yeah, because otherwise you kind of get that inauthentic leadership, right? Where actually somebody's, sending these inspirational quotes and emails or text messages to the team, but actually when you see that person in terms of their inner image and they are on a day-to-day basis, it doesn't match that character.
Yeah, you know, and that for me, in this day and age, that is a problem now, right? I think we discussed this before, and I know we've got to wrap up, but there are too many people now that have become, you know, motivational speakers, but on paper, they, you know, because of the evolution of AI, they give me an inspirational quote for LinkedIn. All of a sudden, they're the world's greatest leader,
Yeah.
and then you talk to them face to face, and they're a half-wit. And you think, well, hold on a minute ago. Yesterday, you were writing this poetic piece about influential leadership, but today, I asked you, what the time is, and you've told me what day it is. It's like you can't figure things out. So I think that's a massive problem. But coming back to what you said, I think those people get less respect from their teams, because I think if they were to just go on LinkedIn and talk the way they talk, people would be like, I like this guy, because they are good people. But because you're putting on this facade of, I'm a super intelligent and motivational leader, when everybody who works with you knows you're not that way, it's a problem. And listen, what works for some people is fine. Like, I don't really have an issue with it. I just think it's better to be more genuine, because people will relate to you more, because then there will be people like you who don't know how to articulate things they want to say, and they will learn from you and think, well, now I've got to go and get ChatGPT so that I sound that way. Well, no, you don't. Just be you, because you're probably going to have a better career and a better life if you're more genuine. Like, I make spelling mistakes. I'm terrible with grammar sometimes. I have to read. I read and write policies for a living. I have to print documents out. Like, I'm one of the worst people. I can't read. I remember the one time you gave me a risk assessment. I can't remember what it was for. And it was like, it's like the first draft. Remember, it was years ago, and it was something like 70 pages. It was so horrific. You hadn't written it, but it was like, oh, can you have a look? And I remember getting it thinking, this is a nightmare, because I have to print this out. The only way I'm good at understanding this information is I have to print it out, and I have to read it multiple times as well. It's so time consuming for me, but it's because it's just the way my brain is. But I don't pretend. Like, I don't go to my team and pretend that I'm reading this policy and I understand everything and I can write it the right way. And I think it's because of that vulnerability that they know that you've got to give me an extra day or two, because I have to print it. I have to go through it with a highlighter. I have to go back and read it again and again and again, that they understand. Well, Alex might be an idiot. He might actually be an idiot, but at least he accepts it and he does it that way. So I don't like all the people like sending emails that's clearly come from ChatGPT. I just want to get it from you. I want to hear from you, because then I'll learn something. I'm not going to learn something because you've generated it from AI.
Yeah, no, I agree. So we come to that point in the episode where we kind of try to like bring it all together and kind of give some takeaways for the listeners and the viewers. So kind of what would you give away? What would you give then as some kind of final takeaways?
Should we do one each?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should we do, or two each? Should we do two each?
Okay.
So takeaways for leaders or aspiring leaders that they can take away and consider adopting in their day-to-day working.
Yeah.
Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
You go first, so I don't steal any of your thunder, because you're good at this stuff.
I feel the first one I think which is really, really poignant, is that good and successful leadership is developed in the small moments, in the small actions.
You can't say something like that, because then I'm going to say like some stupid one line, and you've got this motivation.
No. The reason why I say that is because again, it's not often we feel like, again, leaders need to be grand, right? It need to be grand gestures. They need to be somebody who kind of, again, has all the answers, and it's the big gestures, the big moments where good leadership is displayed. But I think it's in the smaller moments. Like I said, it's in the smaller actions, in the actions that you're displaying on a daily basis, the consistencies, all the things we discussed in the episode. So I think if you're trying to develop yourself as a leader, it's just focusing on the smaller moments, so the smaller actions and the smaller details, and being consistent in that. So it goes back to kind of, even in this episode we were saying, like, it's the smaller things that kind of like those details where you were doing, where you actually it was having an impact. And it's really important that I think we focus on the smaller things than kind of trying to these grand gestures.
Yeah, I like that. So my first one will be one that I got from ChatGPT. Funny enough, no, I'm not going to lie about it. I went on to ChatGPT when you told me earlier this is going to be the topic, and I said, okay, give me one line. Like, what's the difference between a manager and a leader? And it gave me about 10 different examples, but one that really stood out. And the reason I'm going to say it is because whilst it's from ChatGPT, I think we've discussed it today, and I think it is relevant. Is that, I can't remember what it said exactly, but it's, a manager will make sure that you show up. A leader makes you want to. And I really like that.
Ooh,
yeah, it's
really
good.
That's really good.
And I was going to just pretend that I wrote it down, but I didn't. I got it from ChatGPT, but I thought it was really, really good because again, it comes back to lessons that I've learned from good and bad managers. And it is exactly that. And that is what I try to do with my team, my teams is I always try to find ways to make them enjoy the work that they're doing, or at least, and understand that I want to help them on their career path.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that one.
That's really good. Well, thank you, ChatGPT.
Yeah.
One, I'm going to steal one from you, actually, if you don't mind, from this episode. So you said earlier on, and I think it's really important. I think as a leader, you need to recognize and be comfortable with the fact that you don't need to have all the answers. I think you mentioned that earlier on. I think strong leadership is not about having all the answers, but asking the right questions. Even more importantly, listening to the answers you're given. So really important that you don't have to have the right answers, but you need to know how to ask the right questions and have the fortitude and ability to really listen, not just hear, but to listen to the answers you're given. So I think that's really important. That
Yeah, another good one. And then finally, I'll just again, I think it comes back to the final discussion is trust the people around you.
Yeah.
Trust the people around you and trust that will be reciprocated. That's an important one. So I'll put that as my final one. That's not a ChatGPT one. That's just something that I try and do.
Perfect. This has been, again, one of the episodes that, again, it's come off the back of another episode and kind of people engaging with us. So we want to continue to thank you guys for liking, for commenting and sharing our content. We want to continue to ask you to continue to comment and engage with us, because then we get episodes like this. So really, really important that we can get out to other people who may not have heard and listened to our content. So be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on your notifications bells so you can keep up to date and keep abreast with our content and our episodes. Thank you, guys.
And we hit our highest level of subscribers, and a couple of our episodes, some of our first episodes, the views and likes went up to, I think one was like 9,000. So they keep growing. So thank you to everyone.
That's true. So even by sharing it, people have the opportunity to go back and listen to the back catalogue of episodes. So thank you.